Kettering is a town with a rich and fascinating past, yet this often goes unnoticed by those who call it home. Too often we hear complaints about the town, some fair, some not. But beyond the surface lies a wealth of history, nature, art, and heritage waiting to be rediscovered. One of Kettering's hidden gems is London Road Cemetery, a place of quiet beauty, rich in stories of the people who shaped this town. It's much more than just a resting place. It's an historic landscape filled with striking monuments, intricate Victorian symbolism, and a surprising array of flora and fauna. Within its gates, we find echoes of Kettering's industrial past, remarkable individuals who left their mark, and a connection to the town's evolution through the 19th and 20th centuries. In this podcast, I want to take you on a journey through London Road Cemetery to explore its history, its artistry, and its role in the wider story of Kettering. Whether you're a lifelong resident or new to the town, I hope this will help you see it in a new light. Amidst Kettering's rapid modernisation in the 19th century, the town faced an urgent issue: overcrowding in the churchyard at the parish church of St. Peter and St. Paul. Land around the church had been used for burials for centuries, dating back to at least the early 12th century and probably even earlier. The first recorded rector was appointed in 1219, though references to a church in Kettering appear as early as 1125 in the Black Book of Peterborough. Given Kettering's status as a manorial settlement since 956, it is possible that an Anglo-Saxon chapel once stood on the site of the existing church, and traces of this earlier structure can still be found in the church's south wall, most notably in the form of a striking pagan green man effigy carved into a stone that stands out from its ironstone and ashlar neighbours. By the early 1860s, the overcrowded churchyard and its steep banks showed that the burial ground, which had been in use for over a millennium, was running out of space. A new burial ground was needed, not only due to lack of space, but also because of public health concerns and new government legislation restricting burials in urban centres. To address this, a burial board was established to find a solution. The burial board, alongside the highways and poor law boards, oversaw much of the town's new development. Governance shifted from the archaic manorial court and parish vestry system to a newly formed town council brimming with young liberal industrial entrepreneurs. The boot and shoe industry was thriving, and the arrival of the railway brought both trade and population growth. Key infrastructure projects reshaped the town. In 1853, a new corn exchange was built on the marketplace, later becoming a cinema in 1909, then the Hippodrome and a myriad of retail outlets, before transforming into the Kino Lounge in recent years. Other major developments included the construction of the Temperance Hall on Gold Street, the Wesleyan Chapel, a new police station, a new grammar school, and a new workhouse on London Road, which still exists today as St. Mary's Hospital. The High Street also saw extensive redevelopment, while St. Peter and St. Paul's Church underwent significant renovations, including the replacement of its bells by local bell founder Thomas Eyre, a partial rebuild of the spire, and the installation of a new steeple. The old one, weathered and worn, now rests in the churchyard, its work now done. The burial board purchased the land for the new cemetery on the north side of London Road from the Tresham estate. The Treshams were a prominent Northamptonshire family with deep historical ties to the area, including their association with nearby Rushton Hall and the enigmatic Triangular Lodge. The cemetery was designed in the style of the great Victorian garden cemeteries, inspired by Père Lachaise in Paris, a model for cemeteries with style. and by Kensal Green and Highgate cemeteries in London. These cemeteries were not only places of burial, but landscape sanctuaries, blending function with beauty. London Road Cemetery, with its tree-lined avenues, picturesque monuments, and tranquil atmosphere, embodies this vision. A strip of land on either side of the newly purchased cemetery plot was sold off for housing, becoming St Peter's Avenue and St Mary's Road, before work began on the cemetery chapel in 1861, resulting in a Grade II listed building that remains a striking focal point today. Designed in an early English style, the chapel, built from ashlar-dressed coursed rubble and Northamptonshire ironstone, features a central porch, a slate roof and an elegant spire. The cemetery was consecrated on May 15, 1861, and it cost £4,000. It was expanded in 1871 for £1,000 and again in 1894 by 12.5 acres for a further £5,000. Following this final expansion, the cemetery comprised 17.5 acres, with 3.5 acres still undeveloped today. The twin chapels housed the deceased before burial, one for Anglicans and one for dissenters. Kettering had been at the forefront of the nonconformist movement for well over a century, and by 1903 their places of worship outnumbered Anglicans by 3 to 1. Wrought iron markers in the chapel porch and dotted throughout the cemetery distinguish consecrated and unconsecrated ground, reflecting these historical social divisions. University attendance was exclusive to Anglicans at the time, so we tend to find professionals and clergy buried on one side of the cemetery and tradespeople and businessmen on the other. The first burial took place on the 3rd of January 1862, and as of January 2006, there had been 32,300 souls laid to rest within the cemetery grounds. The cemetery follows a structured grave numbering system, starting at the corner nearest the Corn Market Hall with A1 and progressing through A to Z 1 to 100, ZA to ZJ 1 to 100, and AA to ZZ 1 to 100, before continuing numerically up to just over 10,000 down the hill. Confused? Some headstones display these reference numbers along with the stonemason's name, which are also recorded in the burial register. Armed with this information, it is possible to track down a particular grave. However, it can be difficult due to lost or decomposed wooden markers, weathered headstones, and some graves being placed out of sequence. If, like me, you have a particular interest in doing this, burial records can be viewed online at Deceased Online or Ancestry.com. Running through the spine of the cemetery lies Lime Tree Avenue, a stunning pathway that divides the consecrated and unconsecrated ground. The European lime trees that line this avenue are native to the region and create a stunning natural cathedral. Their branches arch overhead to form a glorious green tunnel in summer and a breathtaking golden display in autumn. Walking along this path, you experience the full cycle of the seasons in all their glory. Dappled sunlight filtering through fresh spring leaves, the hum of bees in summer, crisp autumn foliage, and the stark elegance of bare branches in the winter. A well-known drawback of lime trees is the sticky residue that accumulates beneath them in summer. This substance, known as honeydew, is not produced by the trees themselves, but is excreted by aphids feeding on their sap. As it settles, honeydew can coat leaves, pavements, and cars, as residents nearby will attest to. Despite this inconvenience, it plays an important role by attracting bees and ants, who are essential to maintaining the ecosystem in the cemetery. Among the many noteworthy trees in the cemetery are the giant sequoias, which were introduced to the UK in 1863. The sequoias here, with the largest boasting a girth of 5.7 metres and several others exceeding 4 metres, are therefore among the oldest, if not the oldest, in the country. These giants, with their soft, sponge-like bark, tower over visitors and serve as a humbling reminder of nature's grandeur and endurance. The cedars in the cemetery are of the Atlantic variety, a species highly valued by the Victorians for their majestic presence, longevity, and symbolic meaning. Representing strength, endurance, and remembrance, these evergreen trees contribute to the picturesque park-like design of the cemetery. Their wide canopies provide shade and shelter, creating a serene environment for visitors, while reinforcing the cemetery's role as a place of reflection and enduring memory. Yew trees held deep symbolic and practical significance in Victorian garden cemeteries. Long associated with death and immortality in British folklore and Christian tradition, yews were often planted to represent the soul's eternal life and resurrection. Their evergreen nature reinforces themes of remembrance and continuity, making them a fitting choice for burial grounds. Beyond symbolism, yews were practical too. Their dense, slow-growing foliage creates a sense of enclosure and peace, offering shade and shelter for mourners. They were also believed to purify the air and protect against evil, a legacy of their use in ancient times. The grounds also feature many seasonal plants, notably lilies of the valley, which symbolise resurrection, and poppies, a flower forever entwined with Kettering, representing sleep and remembrance. The cemetery's mix of native and exotic trees, wildflowers and quiet seclusion has made it an ideal home for a variety of wildlife. Many birds find sanctuary here, with wood pigeons, magpies and robins among the most commonly seen. Peregrine falcons, which reside in the Tower of St. Peter and St. Paul's, can often be spotted soaring overhead or perched high in the cemetery's tallest trees. The skies are also frequently graced by red kites, their distinctive forked tails making them easily recognisable as they glide in search of food. Once rare in the UK, their resurgence has been a conservation success story, and their presence above Kettering may even have historic ties to the town's name. Back on the ground, urban foxes roam the cemetery at dusk, while badgers have been known to disturb graves with their burrowing. Despite occasional disruptions, these animals add to the site's dynamic ecosystem, reinforcing the delicate balance between history and the natural world. London Road Cemetery is not only a place of natural beauty, but also a site of profound historical and artistic significance. Its monuments and gravestones reflect a rich tapestry of cultural and religious traditions, drawing influences from ancient Greece, Rome, and Egypt through to the Victorian era. Here you'll find a remarkable variety of grave markers, including chest tombs, ledger stones, coped stones, and intricately carved crosses, all adorned with symbolic motifs. Angels representing protection, urns signify the soul's ascension, and broken columns which signify a life cut short. Gothic Revival Celtic crosses and Christograms further echo the deep religious sentiment of the period. The cemetery's diverse monument styles offer a glimpse into history's architectural evolution. Simple stone slabs echo ancient Bronze Age markers, while obelisks are inspired by the Egyptians. Stela reflect ancient Greek and Roman traditions, contrasting with medieval discoid or head and shaft memorials. Chest tombs originally supporting effigies, and coped stones with armorial designs carry medieval influences. Sculptural elements like angels and weepers express mourning and protection, while symbolic sculptures such as lilies for purity, palm leaves for victory, and weeping willows for grief, add emotional depth. Together, these artistic elements create an evocative landscape that beautifully captures the cultural and historical essence of the era. The cemetery contains 91 Commonwealth War casualties, with 51 burials from World War I and 40 from World War II. The graves are scattered throughout the cemetery, with some grouped together. These war graves, maintained by the Commission, are elegant and uniform, regardless of rank. Some bear the names and details of multiple family members who all died in the same war. Two brothers of the Chapman family, Lance Corporal Charles Reuben Chapman of the 3rd Northamptonshire Regiment and Private Alfred Richard Chapman of the 3rd Bedfordshire Regiment, are buried together. Charles died from gas poisoning on the 30th of November 1918, while Alfred died serving his king and country on the 9th of August 1919. The headstone also mentions their two brothers, who are commemorated by the Commission abroad. Private Percy Edwin Chapman of the 1st Northamptonshire Regiment, who died on the 16th of November 1916 and is buried in France, and Private Francis Edward Chapman, also of the 1st Northamptonshire Regiment, who was killed in action on the 9th of May 1915 and is commemorated on the La Tourette Memorial in France. It's hard to comprehend the grief this poor family must have felt. Another is Pilot Officer Raymond Mayhew Lewin, a George Cross recipient from Kettering, who heroically saved a fellow airman from a burning aircraft in Malta in 1940. Despite suffering catastrophic injuries, he returned to active service in 1941, but a Wellington bomber he was aboard crashed on landing at Oakington in Cambridgeshire, killing all of the crew on board, including Raymond. The Cross of Sacrifice, situated on an island midway down Lime Tree Avenue, was designed by Sir Reginald Blomfield, who designed Lambeth Bridge, and features in many war cemeteries. This neoclassical monument symbolises the ultimate sacrifice made by those who served. The downturned sword represents peace after conflict, emphasising the futility of war. The simple cross, a universal symbol, represents the many different races and faiths who fought on behalf of the Allied forces. Alongside the war graves, the cemetery is home to many notable individuals who shaped Kettering's history. Some are much celebrated, others not so much. Sophia Green, 1881 to 1956. Sophia, or Sophie as she preferred to be known, was a trailblazing educator and a pioneer of women's education. She started her career at the Kettering Clothing Cooperative Factory before taking a role with the Workers' Educational Association, an organisation committed to providing accessible education for working class adults. Her dedication led to her appointment in 1919 as the WEA tutor organiser for Kettering and District, a position she held for decades. Through this role, she broadened educational access for women in Kettering, Northampton, Corby and Rushden. Green was a fervent believer in lifelong learning, and she was instrumental in encouraging women, especially factory workers, to seek education at a time when opportunities for working class women were scarce. Her collaboration with the WEA helped to connect education and employment, empowering countless women to acquire new skills and knowledge. Although Green's significant contributions fostered inspiration in countless individuals, she rests in an unmarked grave, with its location only presumed by the proximity of the surrounding graves. The original headstone, potentially a simple wooden cross, has likely been lost or destroyed over time. from the relative unknown to the much celebrated. Sir Alfred East, 1844 to 1913. Alfred East was a renowned landscape painter, celebrated for his atmospheric and romantic depictions of nature. Influenced by the Barbizon school, his work captured the beauty of the countryside with soft, impressionistic light and a dreamlike quality. He travelled extensively, painting scenes from Italy, Spain, Egypt and Japan, with his Japanese landscapes particularly admired for their fusion of Eastern and Western artistic styles. In 1910, King Edward VII knighted him for his contributions to British art. His book, The Art of Landscape Painting in Oil Colour, remains a classic guide for artists. East's most lasting contribution to his hometown is the Alfred East Art Gallery, which he sponsored and helped establish in 1913. The gallery, Northamptonshire's oldest purpose-built art gallery, was created as a cultural gift to the town, providing a space for both established and emerging artists. It remains a vital artistic hub, though temporarily closed, houses a significant collection of his works alongside contemporary exhibitions. Highly respected in his time, East served as a president of the Royal Society of British Artists from 1906 until his death. Critics praised his ability to capture mood and atmosphere, calling his work poetry on canvas, though some found it too romanticised as more modernist styles emerged. In Kettering, however, he was a beloved figure, and his bust outside the gallery stands as a lasting tribute to his artistic legacy and his dedication to his hometown. Though his grave may be modest, Charles Wicksteed was one of Kettering's most influential figures, leaving behind a legacy that shaped both industry and recreation. Born in Leeds in 1847, he was one of 10 children raised in a Unitarian family. His early years were marked by academic struggles, yet his natural talent for engineering emerged at a young age. By 14, he was training as a civil engineer. In his early 20s, he apprenticed at Kettering Company, where he excelled in locomotive manufacturing and the development of steam-powered ploughs. In 1868, he founded Charles Wicksteed & Co., a steam plough contracting enterprise, later relocating to Kettering in 1872. His company flourished, pioneering mechanical hacksaws, bicycle racks and playground equipment, some of which were exported worldwide. His contributions during World War I, manufacturing munitions, gears and gauges, further cemented his reputation as a leading industrial innovator. Wicksteed's greatest legacy, however, lies in Wicksteed Park, one of the first public recreational parks in the UK. In 1911, he purchased 400 acres of the Barton Hall estate, with the original vision of creating a model village. Later, he shifted this focus to develop a park for children and families. By 1921, the park officially opened, featuring a boating lake, tree-lined avenues, and his own playground equipment designs, including swings and slides. His unwavering belief that all children, regardless of background, should have access to play led to a business that would eventually export playground equipment to over 80 countries. To this day, Wicksteed Park remains a cherished destination, fulfilling his vision of combining relaxation, adventure and fun. Despite his success and wealth, Charles Wicksteed battled with what he called dark dogs, a term we now recognise as clinical depression. The loss of his wife in 1913, the deaths of several siblings in the 1920s, and the passing of his beloved dog Jerry in 1930 took a heavy toll on Charles. In 1931, overwhelmed by his struggles, he tragically took his own life. A deeply sorrowful end for a man who had brought so much joy to others. A monument dedicated to Jerry his faithful companion, still waits patiently for him in the rose garden at Wicksteed Park. While the history and the stories of those buried in London Road Cemetery are undoubtedly captivating, my own relationship with this place adds an entirely different layer of meaning. I grew up in Kettering and Burton Latimer, spending the first 21 years of my life here. But despite the cemetery being right on my doorstep, I never visited it, not once. It wasn't until 2012, after returning to Kettering, that I stumbled across London Road Cemetery. At that point in my life, I was struggling. Feeling lost and weighed down, I went for a walk simply to clear my mind. It was during this aimless wander that I found myself at the gates of the cemetery. As soon as I stepped inside, something clicked. The peaceful atmosphere, the soft sounds of nature, the gentle smells of earth and greenery, all combined to soothe me in ways I hadn't expected. There was a tranquility here that seemed to wrap around me, and for the first time in ages, the weight on my shoulders began to lift. I left that day in a much better state of mind than when I had entered, and from that moment on, I found myself walking here nearly every day. In 2015, as I began exploring my family history, I discovered that dozens of my ancestors passed here in the cemetery. What started as a journey to trace my roots turned into something much more meaningful. Each visit became an opportunity to connect with these long-lost relatives, to honour them by tracing their final resting places and learning about their lives. Perhaps the most poignant discovery of all was that of my great-grandfather, who lies at the very bottom of the hill. He lived to nearly 100, and I remember him well from my early childhood. He was the kind of man whose warmth radiated through everything he did, with twinkling eyes that always seemed to hold a secret of joy. I can still recall the bags of pennies he'd give me from the winnings of his domino games. My great-grandfather spent so many years as a widower, but now, after so many decades, he rests here with my great-grandmother. She passed away 50 years earlier, and now they are together forever. It's a deeply moving thought to know that my ancestors, the people who have shaped my story, are here, in this quiet, peaceful place. This cemetery isn't just a final resting place for the departed. It's a place where past and present converge, a place where you can find peace, connection, and even healing. It's so much more than a burial ground. It offers a glimpse into Kettering's history, a haven for nature and nature lovers, and a peaceful refuge for those struggling with their own dark dogs. The quiet pathways, shaded by towering lime trees and sequoias, invite reflection, while the presence of wildlife, birdsong, and rustling leaves fosters a sense of calm. The stories engraved on its monuments remind visitors of life's brevity and beauty, offering perspective and solace. In a world that often feels overwhelming, time spent in this tranquil space can help clear the mind, relieve anxiety, and provide quiet moments of renewal and hope. With its rich Victorian design, significant monuments, and fascinating stories, London Road Cemetery offers a unique opportunity to connect with Kettering's past. Whether you're interested in genealogy, local history, or simply enjoying a peaceful walk among historic trees and gravestones, I encourage you to visit and explore for yourself.